Good morning. It is a beautiful morning where I am. I hope it's the same where you are. To my right, there are some hills, and the sun is rising over the hills, and the colors are magnificent in the way that the sky is when it rises and sets over mountains. And on my left, it could be the dead of night still, but the moon is out and completely full. And there's snow on the ground, and it's a beautiful scene. So, like two contrasting scenes out the windows. It's very cool. Both are very beautiful. Um, this morning, we're going to talk about tides of chemicals. We're driven by tides of chemicals, ancient neurological connections, and learned adaptations or adaptations to our own experiences throughout our life, and very much in the beginning parts of our life. These constitute a feedback cycle that influence and guide a great deal of our desires and actions. Not all of these individual tendencies, however, serve our own or our community's best interests. Without conscious consideration and the deconstruction of the reasons behind our thoughts and habits, a great deal of our days can pass outside of our design. So we must become aware of these internal influences if we desire change. Some individual tendencies are simply untrained and or miscalibrated and tend to lower our resilience against suffering. Here I'm thinking of how we view our relationship with comfort and discomfort, and which things we're able to tolerate, and possibly even that we're built to tolerate in order for our bodies to function at their best and their most complete. Things like hard physical work, being cold, being in the dark, being bored, or not being entertained at all moments of our lives. Another way of saying that. We need stressors in order to grow, and we need rest and silence or an absence from distraction in order to compact those growth stressors into abilities that we can call on when we need them. Some of our individual tendencies contain powerful universal truths that have been repurposed by faulty external designs or other people's designs for their own lives to perpetuate less desirable outcomes for us and our communities. These are principles of humanity that catch our attention and engage our non-critical brain in instant approval. Here, I'm thinking of what we began discussing in the previous talk on energy efficiency, but it could also be things we love as humans, like stories or ideas of hard work or generosity. Amongst the overabundance of available stories in the world today, most of us recognize there can be such a thing as too much story time, for instance. And how often do we see hard work and generosity of an individual praised without fair critique of where the wealth of money behind the generosity came from, or recognizing that some forms of hard work are completely out of balance and not something we should all strive for? All of the individual tendencies, the emotions and cues that bubble up into our consciousness and signal us based on the chemical and neurological signature of who we are today, that signature is individually distinguished in us all and require our own specific attention, and consideration and understanding. Knowing that our body and behaviors adapt to regulate these emotions, once we start to recognize our reactions to them, we can consider the conscious relabeling and annotation of these reactions, curating a response that is more in line with the life of our own design and the things that we want. Such conscious awareness and active training can make use of our own biofeedback mechanisms instead of allowing them to operate solely on external design, ones based on survival in a very different environment, or ones based on societal designs that are outdated or were never in our best interest, or ones we learn to avoid negative experiences in our own past, but that we have the tools and skills to move beyond now. But before we can begin reshaping this feedback response within ourselves, before we can retrain our habits in our better interest, we really need to become aware of and comfortable with the thought and space between our thoughts and feelings. This is the space we have to grow in order to have the capacity to run some new user design code, if you will. So become a little curious of your conclusions and actions in the following hours and days. Try to focus on yourself or things in your own world in the beginning, because that's where we have the most intimate knowledge. Maybe it's wondering if a habit you have is really the best way to achieve your goal, or maybe it's recognizing a split second between something happening and our emotional reaction to it, and just noticing what that emotion is. These are lifelong quests and habits and reactions, always visiting and questioning with some frequency. This needs to happen over and over again and draw our repeated attention. And gradually we can pull our lives out of the external subconscious of our past and cultivate one that's more in line with our current selves. So thanks for listening this morning, and hopefully there's some small action you can take here. And I'll talk to you next time.